It's a strange thing to be sitting here, holding my 2-week-old baby, Rain, while simultaneously battling my own family in court just to keep her. I mean, I honestly never thought I'd be one of those people, you know? The ones with the wild, unbelievable stories you read online. But here I am. My life has just become one of them. The last few months have been a complete blur of fear and exhaustion and fighting, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how we even got to this point. It started with my Aunt Brenda, my mom's older sister, and my cousin, Valerie. They tried to strong-arm me, actually pressure me, into giving up my newborn baby to Valerie and her husband. When I said no, absolutely not, Brenda went nuclear. She actually showed up at the hospital, where I'd just given birth, and filed a fake Child Protective Services report, claiming I was an unfit mother. I had to fight her, in court, just to hold on to my little girl. It's almost impossible to explain how much I loved my mom. She was everything. My dad disappeared when I was 12, just gone. So it was always just us. I was in college, in Richmond, Virginia, when she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It hit like a truck. One minute she was just a little tired, the next, the doctors were telling us the worst news possible. There was no question for me. I dropped out of school instantly. My mom needed me. I handled everything, appointments, medications, treatments. I had no idea what I was doing most of the time, but I just kept going. It was the hardest 2 years of my life, but also, in a weird way, the most beautiful. We became so incredibly close. When she passed, when I was 22, I felt absolutely gutted, completely lost. No degree, barely any savings, no idea what to do next. I just survived. I picked up whatever jobs I could find, waitressing, temp work, babysitting. Anything to keep a roof over my head. It was during that time I reconnected with Ethan. We went to high school together, just friendly back then. He reached out on social media, and it was nice, you know? Having someone to talk to, someone who seemed to care. Things moved fast. Maybe too fast. 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. It was completely unplanned. And when I told Ethan, he just panicked. He said he wasn't ready to be a dad. Said we needed to talk. And then he just ghosted. Blocked my number, disappeared. Gone. So there I was, 22, pregnant, working 2 part-time jobs, and completely terrified. No partner, no family to lean on. I spent so many nights just crying, wondering what I was going to do. I thought about all my options, really, truly. But in the end, something in my gut, something deep inside me, said I had to keep this baby. It felt right, even if it was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever done. This is where Aunt Brenda and Valerie come in. After my mom died, Brenda was the only real family I had left on that side. My mom was this incredibly warm, giving person, and Brenda measured people by their bank accounts. She married into money, lives in a huge house, and acts like anyone struggling is just lazy. Valerie, her daughter, is Brenda on steroids, snobby, self-centered. We were never close. But when Brenda found out I was pregnant, she suddenly became very interested. Calling me every day, inviting me to lunch, offering to help with baby stuff. I was suspicious, but I was also so vulnerable, so desperate for any support, I let her in. Huge mistake. About 2 months into my pregnancy, we were at one of those lunches, and Brenda dropped the bombshell. She started talking about Valerie and her husband, Daniel, and how they'd been trying for years to have kids, and now they found out they couldn't. I felt terrible for them, of course. But then, Brenda just flat out suggested I give my baby to them. Not if you ever consider adoption, no. It was here's the plan. She talked about medical bills, a generous compensation package, yes, she actually used those words, and occasional visits if I kept my life stable. It was like a business deal. I was stunned. I couldn't speak. Then she said something that's burned into my brain ever since: Valerie can do justice to motherhood. She's educated, financially stable. What can you offer? You're a college dropout, working minimum wage. Can you really give this child a good life? That hit me hard. Because in my darkest moments, I'd asked myself that same question. And she just threw it at me like it was a fact. I told her I never wanted to see her again and walked out. Of course, that wasn't the end. Brenda and Valerie started harassing me nonstop. Calls, texts, showing up at my apartment. When I blocked them, they started sending other family members to guilt-trip me. It was like they couldn't accept my no. Like I didn't even have the right to decide for myself. It got so intense that I moved. Didn't tell anyone except a few trusted friends. Just packed up and left. It was hard, being pregnant and exhausted, but I had to protect my baby and myself. As my due date approached, Brenda found out which hospital I planned to deliver at. I still don't know how. She tried to convince the hospital staff I was mentally unstable and planning to abandon my baby, hoping they'd intervene and give her to Valerie. Thankfully, the hospital didn't buy it. But it scared me so much I changed hospitals at the last minute. Only my best friend, Chloe, knew where I was going. She's been my absolute rock. She was with me for all 19 painful hours of labor. I also hired a doula, not just for support, but as another witness, another person on my side. After what felt like an eternity, my beautiful baby girl arrived. I named her Rain, after my mom. Holding her, all the fear, the pain, the doubt, it just faded. I knew I'd made the right decision. Nobody was going to take her from me. Chloe stayed that first night. We were supposed to be discharged the next afternoon. That morning, Chloe went for coffee, and a nurse came in, looking worried. She said 2 women were asking about me at the nurse's station. From the description, I knew instantly it was Brenda and Valerie. I still get chills thinking about it. The nurse picked up on my panic immediately and asked if I wanted them removed. Yes. Security escorted them out before they even got near my room. I was shaking. The thought that they might have gotten to us, it still haunts me. But what I didn't know then, when I thought the worst was over, when I was finally home with Rain and starting to breathe again, was that Brenda had a backup plan. Of course she did. Why would I think she'd just give up? That's not her. It happened the day after we got home. I was running on fumes, exhausted from labor, barely sleeping, just trying to navigate this overwhelming new role. Rain was so tiny, and I was constantly second-guessing myself. Is she eating enough? Is she warm enough? I was just trying to keep my head above water. Then there was a knock. I froze mid-diaper change. Chloe was at work. None of my friends would just show up without texting. I cautiously opened the door, and there stood a woman with a badge and a clipboard. She introduced herself as a Child Protective Services worker. She said she was there in response to a report. I was so confused. What report? Then she started reading. Someone filed an anonymous report claiming I was using illegal substances and alcohol while caring for a newborn. That my apartment was unsafe, unsanitary. And the worst part, that I'd expressed intentions to harm myself and my baby. I don't even have the words for how that felt. The floor just dropped out from under me. It was all lies. Every single word. I hadn't touched alcohol since I found out I was pregnant. I barely drank before that anyway. My apartment? Yes, it's small, and I don't have fancy things, but it's clean, it's safe. Everything Rain needs is here. And harming myself or my baby? That one hit so hard because it wasn't just a lie, it was a dangerous one. It was designed to paint me as unstable, unfit. And I knew immediately who was behind it. Before I could even say anything, the CPS worker started asking questions. She was calm, professional. She looked around, checked for hazards, asked to see where Rain slept, asked about my mental state. I was honest. I told her I was tired and stressed, but I had support. She asked if I'd take a drug test voluntarily. I said yes, without hesitation. She seemed surprised, but I had nothing to hide. I would have taken 10 tests right then if it would clear my name. By the end of her visit, she seemed satisfied. Everything looked fine. She said it appeared to be a false report, that it happens more often than people think in family disputes. She asked if I had any idea who made the report. That's when I told her everything. The harassment, the hospital incident, the bribery. When I mentioned they wanted my daughter and I'd refused, I saw something shift in her expression. She made more notes, thanked me. I thought that was it. Case closed. Brenda and Valerie would see they couldn't scare me. They'd back off. Nope. 2 days later, I got a call from Detective Ramirez. He wanted to speak in person about the CPS report. I panicked, thinking it was worse than I thought. But when we met, he told me something that surprised me. Filing a false CPS report, knowingly and maliciously, is a crime in our state. He said my case had raised red flags, especially the timing, the day after Rain came home, and the nature of the accusations. He asked if I had any evidence. So I gave him everything. Texts, voicemails, messages from other family members they'd sent to harass me. Statements from Chloe and 2 other friends who'd witnessed Brenda's behavior. Detective Ramirez took it all seriously. He said it would take time to investigate, but encouraged me to protect myself. That's when I decided to file for a restraining order. I had no idea how to start, but Chloe jumped in. She connected me with a local mom's support group I'd joined during pregnancy, and they came through in a huge way. They helped me find a kind, affordable lawyer who understood. With his help, we filed the paperwork for a temporary restraining order against both Brenda and Valerie. The hearing was just yesterday. I showed up exhausted, nerves fried, barely sleeping. I wore clothes without spit up on them and tried to look like I had my life together. When I walked into the courtroom and saw Brenda and Valerie sitting there with their high-powered, smug-looking attorney, I felt sick. They looked so confident, like this would be over in 5 minutes. But they were wrong. My lawyer was incredible. He presented everything. The judge listened carefully, and when it was over, he granted the temporary restraining order on the spot. Brenda and Valerie didn't say a word. I didn't even look at them. I just held Rain in her car seat beside me and kept my eyes forward. We have a follow-up hearing next month to try and make it permanent. Afterward, I felt so many things. Relief, exhaustion, sadness, anger. I should be home, bonding with my daughter, figuring out breastfeeding, reading baby books, getting emotional over tiny socks. Instead, I'm fighting in courtrooms, worrying about what twisted thing Brenda might try next. And now I'm sitting here, with Rain asleep on my chest, wondering. Am I overreacting? Should I have just let Brenda and Valerie visit at the hospital and avoided all this drama? Is it wrong to involve the police and the courts when it's family? I go back and forth. Part of me feels guilty. Brenda is my aunt, Valerie my cousin. Part of me still wants to believe they're just grieving in their own messed up way, that maybe they really think they're trying to help. But then I remember, they tried to take my child. One day after I gave birth. Not by talking, not by offering help, but by trying to paint me as an unfit mother. That's not love. That's control. That's manipulation. No, I don't think I'm overreacting. I think I'm protecting my baby. Still, things have gotten even crazier since then. Detective Ramirez called again. They found evidence. Brenda used her own phone to make that false CPS report. She wasn't exactly subtle. They're presenting the case to the district attorney, who will decide whether to press charges. Filing a false CPS report with malicious intent is a misdemeanor in our state, up to 6 months in jail, a substantial fine. I'm not sure how I feel about my aunt possibly going to jail. What she did was incredibly harmful, but the idea of being responsible for sending a family member to jail. It's uncomfortable. In more positive news, Chloe has temporarily moved in. She's been a godsend. Watching Rain so I can shower or nap, helping with cooking, just being there. And the mom's support group? They're amazing. One member is helping me update my resume for better jobs. Another, who runs a daycare, offered Rain a spot at a reduced rate once I go back to work. And Rain? She's doing wonderfully. Gaining weight. Strong lungs, especially at 3 a.m., of course. But every quiet moment, just her and me, makes all of this worth it. Then, just yesterday, the biggest bombshell. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Daniel, Valerie's husband. He called to apologize for his wife and mother-in-law's behavior. He said he had no part in their schemes. Turns out, he and Valerie had been trying for years, and when they found out Valerie couldn't have biological children, she was resistant to adopting someone else's. So when Brenda found out I was pregnant, she presented Valerie with the perfect solution. Daniel claims he shut down the idea immediately, saying it was wrong and illegal. He thought that was the end of it. But Brenda and Valerie went behind his back. He only found out when the police showed up at their house to question Valerie about the false CPS report. He was horrified, confronted Valerie, and she admitted everything. Daniel told me he's filed for divorce and moved out. He wanted me to know he never would have supported it, and he's cooperating fully with the police. I'm still stunned. Part of me is skeptical, thinking it could be another manipulation, but he sounded genuinely remorseful. And the details he gave matched what Detective Ramirez told me. Hours after Daniel's call, an email came in from my Aunt Michelle, Brenda's sister-in-law. Brenda has been having a breakdown since the police visit. Apparently, she confessed everything to her husband, Michelle's brother, who had no idea what she'd been doing. He's furious and told Brenda she needs to face the consequences. He's insisting she gets psychiatric help and won't spend a penny on legal fees if she's charged. Michelle wanted me to know that the rest of the family doesn't support Brenda's actions and they're all horrified. And then, later that afternoon, Detective Ramirez called again. The district attorney has decided to charge Brenda with filing a false report to Child Protective Services. A misdemeanor. Arraignment next week. He asked if I'd testify if it goes to trial. I agreed, though the thought makes me incredibly anxious. This whole situation has gotten so much bigger than I ever expected. Brenda's arraignment was yesterday. She pleaded not guilty, which Detective Ramirez said was expected. A trial date is set for 2 months from now. My lawyer says we have a strong case, but Brenda might still take a plea deal. Honestly, I don't know what I want. To see her truly face consequences, or just to have it over with. Either way, I've decided I'm not letting this woman take up any more space in my head than she already has. I've spent too much energy fighting her darkness. It's time to focus on the light. The hearing for the permanent restraining order is coming up soon, and my lawyer thinks everything that's happened will only strengthen our case. She's also looking into Brenda's dishonesty about Valerie's adoption history, thinking it could play a role in the criminal side too. I'm letting the legal professionals handle it now. I've done my part. I've told the truth and shared the evidence. I just want to protect Rain and move forward. And somehow, in the middle of all this drama, there have been these quiet moments of real peace. Tiny pockets of joy. Rain is doing so well. Chubby cheeks, starting to coo, her little eyes following me around the room. Every time she smiles in her sleep, or grips my finger with those tiny hands, everything else just fades away. For a second, it's just her and me. Chloe has been my absolute rock. She's helped in ways I can never repay. From grocery runs to holding Rain so I can shower, to just sitting with me when I break down crying from the exhaustion and stress. I don't know how I would have made it through without her. And the moms group. I can't even begin to describe how grateful I am. These women, some I barely knew, stepped up. Home-cooked meals, diapers, wipes, even hand-me-down clothes. But more than the material stuff, they've given me emotional strength. They've reminded me I'm not alone, that I'm doing okay. That it's normal to feel scared, but I'm doing the most important thing right, I'm showing up for my daughter every single day. On top of all that, I got some unexpected good news on the job front. One of the moms in the group had a connection at a local company hiring for an administrative assistant role. It's not glamorous, but it's decent pay, benefits, and the hours are flexible enough for childcare. I interviewed, they liked me, and I got the offer. I'll be starting after my maternity leave. It's a huge weight off my shoulders, knowing I'll have stable income and a job where I can still be there for Rain when she needs me most. As for Brenda and Valerie, honestly, I don't know what their future holds, legally or personally. I've stopped trying to guess what they'll do next. If they reach out again, I have the restraining order to protect us. If they face consequences, good. But I've accepted that I might never get an apology or closure from them. And that's okay. Closure isn't something they can give me anyway. I've found it in other places. In Rain's peaceful breathing as she naps. In Chloe's unwavering friendship. In the strength I didn't know I had. This whole thing has been traumatic. It's drained me in ways I didn't know were possible. I've cried more in the past few weeks than probably my entire adult life. But strangely, I've also never felt more grounded in who I am. I dropped out of college to care for my dying mom. I lost her, grieved her, then found out I was pregnant and totally alone. I could have crumbled. But I didn't. I built a new life, piece by piece, day by day. And now I'm a mom. A real one. Not a perfect one. Not one with money or fancy degrees. But a mom who loves her child so fiercely that she's willing to fight through anything for her. A mom who wakes up at 3 a.m. to feed a baby and still smiles through the exhaustion. A mom who knows that being successful isn't about titles or bank accounts. It's about love, patience, sacrifice, and showing up over and over again. Brenda was wrong. All the money in the world doesn't make someone a good parent. What matters is the willingness to put your child first. And I've done that every step of the way. Rain and I are okay. We're better than okay. We're safe. We're healing. We're moving forward. And whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Have you ever had to fight a battle you never saw coming, especially with family?